What's up, my bones? SilverDFanng back with more YouTube reactions. This time we got a special interest of mine. So, I love wrestling. I've talked about wrestling on stream, but I don't get to do a lot of wrestling stuff because, A, lot of the big channels don't let you show their clips, and I've been demonetized before. But also because, like, I don't know if my audience would be into it, and honestly, I don't think they are, but I think they enjoy me talking about it, so I am going to do more wrestling in the future because it's something I'm passionate about. This one is from Wrestling with Regret, and it's the worst big men in wrestling, just going through... Yeah, sometimes you can look like the part, but you can't do the part. Enjoy. Okay. So this is Wrestling with Regret, the worst big men in wrestling. But this would be a fun one to show people that aren't really into wrestling. Because I think everyone loves a disaster, and B, a big man.
Up until the last 20 years or so, professional wrestling was considered to be the land
Oh, they called you a Puda? Nah, that ain't right.
of the giants. And sure, there have been some notable exceptions, but the prevailing theory always was bigger is better. If you put together a list of the greatest and most popular performers throughout history, it would probably be full of guys who were bigger and taller than your average wrestler. Hell, some of them were so well known for their size, they incorporated it into their names. But it's often been said wrestling has evolved. Just being the tallest or heaviest guy in the ring is no longer good enough to get a paycheck.
Not to WWE. To WWE, the bigger and buffier you are, the more we like you.
True giants in wrestling are rare, and unfortunately, the good ones even more so. But hey, it's still fun to watch the bad ones now and again, and this week, I'm gonna rank them, the top 8 worst big men in wrestling history. Number 8, Mabel.
Oh my God.
This guy had a rise and fall from the main event to obscurity that was so fast, it's a wonder he didn't hurt himself in the process.
I have a feeling he's going to talk about it, but Mabel was a disaster. Mid-90s, literally, they just got him because he was a big black dude. Could not wrestle for shit.
More on that in a minute, though. Mabel debuted for the WWF in 1993 as part of Men on a Mission alongside Oscar and Mo. Their rap gimmick was surprisingly contemporary for the company.
I forgot that they abbreviated it to MOM. These three just big black dudes. What up? We're MOM. Oh yeah, they rapped. 1993 wrestling was very cliched and stereotyped. These were, yeah.
At the time, even if their fashion sense wasn't. Aside from a tag team championship win that happened by accident on a European tour, the Men on a Mission never got much of a chance at the top of the title pick.
Oh my God. He even has whoop. There it is. Oh my God. Oh, the cheese, man. The cheese.
Sure. But by 95, Diesel was WWF champion and needed some monsters to slay. Mabel and Mo turned heel before WrestleMania 11, and within months, Mabel was crowned that year's King of the Ring. The tournament was so well received that the crowd in Philadelphia responded with their own trademark show of support.
Listen to this. No. For anyone that doesn't know, ECW at this time was a big competitor. So this is them literally saying, this is bullshit.
King Mabel took advantage of his push and newfound credibility.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what sport it is. Philadelphia fans are awful, and I love it.
By legitimately injuring several of his opponents in the ring, including Big Daddy Cool in their big title match at that year's SummerSlam, a moment that almost got him fired that same night. If he hadn't dug his own grave for his career by then, the final nail in the coffin came when he broke the Undertaker's orbital bone with an errant leg drop, putting the dead man on ice for several weeks. Puns! The WWF unceremoniously disposed of Mabel in early '96, and to give you an idea...
Again, he was just so unsafe to work with. The dude was literally told just be a fat guy, and he injured so many of his opponents.
of how bad his reputation was by this point, WCW wanted nothing to do with him once he was a free agent. They paid Lanny Poffo 6 figures to sit in his duff at home for 5 years, but wouldn't go near a former main eventer for the competition? Not a good look for that guy. Mabel was rehired by the Federation in '99 and was soon rechristened Viscera, one of The Undertaker's last...
Okay, to clarify, so not only was he like a part of The Undertaker's thing, no, the plot is he was brainwashed. Literally, Undertaker brainwashed him and made him into a fat blade because late 90s. Probably should have made him go through training, you would think. But again, he looks the part, so good enough.
He's in the Ministry of Darkness. That's ironic. After a few years, Viscera swapped out the trash bag for a massive pair of pajamas. As the world's largest love machine, Viscera delighted the crowd by singing Barry White to Lillian Garcia and violently dry humping his opponents in the ring.
That was one of his finishing moves, by the way, is him just dry humping other men.
Honestly, though, if somebody got injured from that finisher, I would laugh my ass off. Viscera wrapped up his WWE run as the inexplicably shirtless Big Daddy V, managed by Matt Stryker and at one point challenging for the ECW title. As for his ring attire, maybe they wanted to embrace the original ECW's edgy legacy by showing large, bare breasts on screen. Number 7, Loch Ness. Originally known as Giant Haystacks in the UK, this mountain of a man is best known for teaming and later feuding with fellow British legend Big Daddy for decades. The two weren't much to look at, but man oh man did they have a presence. Fast forward to 1996 when the 50-year-old Haystacks was signed to WCW and debuted as the newest member of the Dungeon of Doom, complete with his new
Yes, the UK is the United Kingdom, Blue.
Name. But things went south in a hurry. Haystacks' age combined with his lack of...
Yeah, so... wrestlers even today, some of them are famous millionaires, but most of them get paid really shitty, and they have to really do this for like until they die. It's very tragic.
Mobility in the ring led to a lot of scary moments when he was paired up with talent whose styles didn't mesh well with his. Honestly, WCW forcing its young and upcoming talent to put Loch Ness over is the most literal representation of the company sacrificing its future for the bloated, washed-up names of the past you're ever going to see. Oh yeah, and according to legend, the guy stunk as well, not just figuratively in the ring, but literally as well. Not great for a job that requires a lot of close contact. Nessie's planned feud with Hulk Hogan was nixed.
Remember your deodorant when you suplex a man about your size. I thought most wrestlers work commercials and acting gigs. That's like 2%. There are hundreds of thousands of professional wrestlers. 1 to 2% actually make it. And in that 2%, 1% probably of that knows how to handle money, because a lot of these people grew up in like the party scene and like really blow their money up.
Soon after it was discovered that his body was riddled with cancerous tumors.
Oh, no.
He abruptly split from the DOD and lost a very short match to the Giant at Uncensored 96 before going back to England, where he'd later die of lymphoma at 52 years of age. Number 6, Uncle Elmer. At 6'10" and more than 400 pounds, Stan Plowboy Frazier, no relation to fellow listmate Nelson Frazier, was probably Memphis Wrestling's ultimate utility player from the late 70s to early 80s.
God, that is a slab of meat of a man.
It seemed as though any time Austin Idol or Jimmy Valiant weren't around to feud with Jerry Lawler, they put Frazier in there in some of the wildest gimmicks this side of Ed Leslie, from the Lone Ranger to Kamala No. 2,
what?
proving that he, not the one-man gang, was the true pioneer of African appropriation in wrestling. In 1980,
yeah, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of African stereotypes in the 80s and 90s. Not good.
1985, WWF star Hillbilly Jim suffered a knee injury that put him out of action for 6 months. And so at the suggestion of Jimmy Hart, Frazier got the call-up and was renamed Uncle Elmer. Upon his debut, Roddy Piper was not impressed.
You've been milked today, you big sucker!
Elmer wasn't exactly the most fluid wrestler in the world, but it mattered not to Vince McMahon, who has a history of going out of his way to make Southerners look absurd. And just in case Frazier didn't quite convey the look of a hillbilly yet, he was given a prop, a big old bucket simply labeled fried pig parts. How's that for
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like the big bucket of pig parts. It's racist, but I kind of like it.
Action figure accessory. Get on that, Mattel.
I'm
Elmer's
hungry.
career peaked in October of '85 when an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event held his real-life wedding to his bride Joyce. But Elmer and the Hillbillies had been mocked so badly by guys like Roddy Piper and Jesse Ventura that it eventually convinced fans to turn on them. The writing was on the wall when Elmer lost in less than 3 minutes to Adrian Adonis at WrestleMania 2. But apparently he couldn't read said writing, allegedly holding McMahon up for more money before the main event taping in April of '86. He instead lost to King Kong Bundy in quick fashion and was awarded a pink slip and, one would hope, enough severance to buy a fresh bucket of fried pig parts. Number 5, Andre the Giant, post-WrestleMania 3. I know, I'll probably get some heat for this, but sometimes the truth hurts. Andre the Giant's legacy as one of the greatest big men and one of the strongest attractions in wrestling history is undisputed. His work in North America and Japan, his hellacious wars with guys like Stan Hansen, Hulk Hogan, and more, stands in stark contrast to the...
I read there was actually a comic book on Andre the Giant's history, like his life history. It was so cool. One second. Andre the Giant comic. Yeah, The Giant. If you can find this, I recommend it. It is so good.
Hobbled, pained, and faded legend fans sadly came to know in the twilight of his career. By 1987, a broken ankle and a back strained by the effect of his gigantism had slowed Andre to the point where it was clear even to him that his days in the ring were numbered. Had he retired after his loss to Hogan in that legendary WrestleMania 3 match, he could have ended his storied career on the highest of highs. Instead, Andre came back from back surgery and went on to wrestle for 3 more years, his condition degenerating to the point that his matches consisted solely of punches, headbutts, and long bear hug spots, his obvious decline in the ring masked only by his impenetrable aura. By the end of his run teaming with Haku, he spent most of his time holding the tag rope because he wasn't mobile enough to be in the middle of the ring for any long period of time.
It is very tragic. Like, this is, like, literally one of the best wrestlers in the 70s. He really loved his craft. His body betrayed him.
Out of respect to Andre, I won't drag his name through the mud any longer than necessary. Thankfully, he was given a hero send-off after turning on Bobby Heenan at WrestleMania 6, as the fans cheered for the big man one last time. Number 4. Nails.
Oh, God.
Aside from Kane for The Undertaker, it's hard to find too many examples of gimmicks that are created specifically to complement another gimmick. But the World Wrestling Federation did that for the Big Boss Man in '92, and, well, it was hard times indeed. Shortly after WrestleMania 8, the Big Boss Man began to receive menacing messages from an ex-con who claimed Boss Man had abused him in prison. What Nails had done to get locked up was never made clear, but considering how he was able to get into the sound systems of major...
That's right. The WWF in the 90s had a wrestler that was literally... His gimmick was in convict that got out of prison. He didn't leave. He escaped prison to destroy a officer that worked at the prison. This is why I love wrestling.
Arenas, I'm gonna guess hacking? After weeks of harassment, Nails finally appeared from the crowd and gave Boss Man a beating that was uncharacteristically brutal for the kid-friendly programming of the time. You'd think hospitalizing a police officer would at the very least be a violation of parole, but hey, this is professional wrestling. There's no room for laws here. But the brutality of the attack paled in comparison to the sheer horror of seeing him wrestle. I'm guessing they didn't do a lot of drop-down, get-it-again drills in the Cobb County Penitentiary. Surprisingly, he seemed better back when he was Mr. Magnificent Kevin Kelly, not to be confused with this Kevin Kelly, but when he cut his mullet and put on the orange jumpsuit, somehow he looked a whole lot worse. At least he looked the part, and that gravelly promo voice they gave him kept the illusion going. Just try not to listen to his real voice.
That was the first beating in a long line of beatings.
Cages are for wild animals and crazy men like
Yeah, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with his normal voice.
myself.
The feud came to a head at the '92 Survivor Series in a nightstick match,
Okay, that's because he's white.
where the Boss Man got his revenge for that felonious assault with a side slam. A feud with The Undertaker was teased until Nails confronted Vince McMahon about his SummerSlam payoff, attacking the owner in his office and telling the cops who arrived he had been sexually assaulted. This wasn't 1998, so...
By the way, that's not a storyline. The actual wrestler attacked Vince McMahon over money and then told the cops it was sexual assault. Wrestling, man. Look again. Look again. He might have a big forehead.
Putting his hands on the owner meant the end of nails in the Federation. He would later be called as a witness in the WWF steroid trial 2 years later, but tanked his credibility on the stand when he admitted he had a grudge against McMahon. Big and dumb, a combination that ought to be illegal. Eh? Oh, and if his Federation exploits aren't enough to put him on this list, just watch his match against El Gigante in Japan.
Oh,
Ugh.
God.
Number 3, the Great Antonio. Antonio Baricevic, formerly born in Croatia, immigrated to Canada at the end of World War II. He'd go on to become a strongman in his new home, wowing spectators and breaking world records with his ridiculous feats of strength. The guy could pull buses, for Pete's sake. Buses, plural.
Nice.
Antonio went on to try his hand at professional wrestling, a journey followed by other strongmen like Ted Arcidi, Bill Kazmaier, and Nathan Jones. Traveling around the globe, the eccentric Croatian French-Canadian was renowned for his size and his strength, but the less said about his actual in-ring ability, the better. But without a doubt, his greatest moment of infamy came in December of 1977 when he wrestled Antonio Inoki in a match in Japan. I mean, the Great Antonio's look alone is pretty iconic. Then they actually start the match. For whatever reason, the Great Antonio decided to not only no-sell Inoki's attacks, but...
What the fuck? Yeah, this isn't normal. When someone hits you like that, you're supposed to, like, sell it.
Stiff the guy back as well. Refusing to go along with the script proved disastrous for the strong man as Inoki stopped playing around 4 minutes in and unleashed hell,
Fuck you.
repeatedly kicking Antonio in the face until he was rendered bloody and unconscious. The match was stopped and the Great
What a dipshit. What a fucking dipshit.
One never wrestled again. And I'll tell you, nobody wants to be the guy who's best known for getting the dog shit kicked out of him for real in a business where everything's supposed to be a work. That's what makes him an all-timer. Number 2, the Great Khali.
This one's bad.
Number 2 on our list is
this.
the physical manifestation of the worst tendencies of Vince McMahon coming home to roost. Standing at an incredible 7'1" with a frame that made him seem even...
I will say, I did love the Great Khali in The Longest Yard, him just playing ping pong with Adam Sandler.
Larger, Dalip Singh Rana first gained notoriety in 2001 when he accidentally killed fellow trainee Brian Ong in the
I didn't fucking remember that. Holy shit.
ring while practicing a flapjack. Ong had suffered a concussion prior to the fatal move, but was told to work through it by his trainers. Singh's...
Oh my god. Okay, so told to work for a concussion. That already is disgusting. Kills a man. This is before his WWE call-up, and they still called him up. The Great Khali, like, just right now, this is insane. But yeah, I live for the Great Khali. It gets worse.
Career would recover from the incident, training for several years in WWE's Deep South developmental territory before debuting after WrestleMania 22 as the Great Khali. Khali made an immediate impact, destroying the...
Also, very racist stereotype. Like, he had a little Indian guy that jumps up and down. It was very Indian, hate.
Undertaker and New World Champion Rey Mysterio in his first few weeks on television. But it soon became clear that Khali wasn't quite ready for prime time, as his lack of control over his oversized body made it hard for even the best of workers to get a decent match out of him or sell his weak offense, which mostly consisted of chops that barely glanced his opponents' heads. To his credit, he did add a head squeeze later on. Khali was so bad in the ring, they moved his planned SummerSlam match with The Undertaker to a taped SmackDown just days before, as the company realized he couldn't deliver a passable match on live pay-per-view. In that match, Taker decided to test Khali's skull's resistance to CTE by bending the chair over his head in a shockingly violent finish to the match.
By the way, it's now illegal in WWE to do headshots because literally chair headshots, so many concussions, so much concussions. But for decades, this was the norm.
Khali was put on ice for a few months and brought back as Raw's new Big Bad, moving right into a program with John Cena. Big Match so John proved his mettle by carrying Khali to a pair of decent matches, becoming the first man to make the Giant submit and later to pin him. In the summer of 2007, Edge was forced to relinquish the world title due to injury, and a battle royal saw Khali claim the title for his own, becoming the first Indian world champion, though him holding the belt upside down in celebration was more...
Oh my god. What a dumbass.
More than a bit symbolic. His title defense against Batista at SummerSlam was a dreadful affair, ending in a DQ. Big Dave would go on to win the title the next month at Unforgiven, and with the exception of a WWE title program with Triple H the next year, Khali would never get close to a world title.
Oh, there's the tiny Indian man that jumped up and shouted a lot.
Or the main event again. By the end of his tenure, Khali had evolved into a full-on comedy figure, the wear and tear in his body making him unreliable for about anything else. He became the Punjabi playboy and hosted the Khali Kiss Cam, which felt like an excuse to rib him every week. We all know how well the fat chick thriller gimmick worked in the past, right? Historically, men of Khali's stature have been used as attractions in wrestling. Come, watch this exceedingly large man in a squared circle in the flesh. I mean, by his size alone, he was a draw for WWE, or at least theoretically. But if that's the case, if they wanted to capitalize on his drawing power, then why is this t-shirt with the words Punjabi Players Club on the back the only piece of Khali merchandise they seem to make that isn't an action figure?
I do love the tiger. That is a really nice tiger.
Look, Big Show's merch has always been crap, but at least he had a lot of it. No doubt, the great Khali in his prime was incredible to look at, and I don't mean to diminish the impact he's had on the Indian wrestling scene either, but the man was painfully limited in the ring, in an era where even big men are expected to perform at a high athletic level, and unlike many of his contemporaries, he lacked the charisma to make up for it. Before I give you the best...
Okay, he didn't bring up... So, they really tried to push the great Khali. They even gave him his own match type. Punjabi prison match. Yep. Literally, they gave the Indian a match type called the Punjabi prison, which was just, what if, rather than a cage of metal, we just make a big-ass bamboo circle because Asia. Wrestling.
Of the worst, here are a few honorable mentions. Sid. While he was way too popular and successful to truly be called one of the worst, there's no denying the glorious awfulness that is Sid Vicious Justice Psycho Yudi. From bungled promos to his infamous unreliability in his later years, perhaps the only saving graces that kept him employed for so long were his look and his intensity. Eli Cottonwood.
Oh, God.
At 7 feet tall and looking like Eric Watts in a funhouse mirror,
this guy was
former
bad.
pro basketball player Eli Cottonwood was part of the second season of NXT alongside guys like Percy Watson, Alex Riley, Michael McGillicuddy, and Husky Harris. Cottonwood wasn't...
1 second.
Percy Watson, Alex Riley, Michael McGillicuddy, and Husky...
Rest in peace, Bray Wyatt. When you see
Incoming
this,
at break.
you don't think all-time wrestling star, but in a couple of years, he becomes like one of the best WWE wrestlers, Bray Wyatt, and he sadly died a couple of years ago. Rest in peace.
Harris. Cottonwood wasn't terrible in the ring, but didn't seem to have the polish for TV either. Depending on who he worked with, he was either okay or boring. And I don't know if all the slouching he did was part of his gimmick or not, but either way, it didn't do much to emphasize his impressive height. Eli did little to impress in the competitions either, whether it was the keg run, the obstacle course, or his moment of infamy during the Talk the Talk challenge.
What is a mustache? It's a little bit of hair growing over the upper lip.
But after that awesomely bad moment, he did little else on the show. He was the second one cut from the competition and was never heard from on a national level ever again. The oddities, except for Golga. I don't want to lump the late John Tenta in with this one, but Kurgan and the Giant Silva are too bad to be spared here. It speaks volumes that in a land as wild as the WWF in the late 90s, these two giants were so bland and so unbelievably awful, they weren't even allowed in the same airspace as the company's top guys, and instead were put in a comedy gimmick. But damn, at least they were over. Thanks, ICP. Isis the Amazon.
Oh, I forgot
yes,
about her.
I know this is a woman on a list of worst big men, but this is my list, so here we go. Remember Caitlyn, the woman who won the third season of NXT and went on to become Divas Champion? Well, her career could have turned out very differently had she not been a last-minute replacement for our next entry. Isis the Amazon, or Aloysia as she was to be known in NXT, stood 6 feet 9 inches, making her...
Yeah, this wasn't, this wasn't, like, edited. Literally, this woman just, well, it's edited in the fact that they weren't all there at the same time, but yeah, that woman was massive. I say was, she's still alive.
Arguably the tallest female wrestler in history, but days before that season was meant to start, she was pulled from the competition and eventually released, replaced by Caitlyn. The story goes she was cut from NXT for failing to divulge some erotic photos she'd done in the past. But look, I've seen some of those pictures, okay? And honestly, they're not that bad. At least not bad enough to warrant a firing, even if Linda McMahon was running for Senate. I've seen far racier content from current and future Hall of Famers from before they got signed. But if you want my humble opinion, she probably got the axe because she was legitimately terrible in the ring. In her matches, she seemed totally lost, uncoordinated, and incapable of working once the bell rang.
This
the
is
relatively
bad.
small
This
sample
is
size of her
bad.
work prevents her from getting a proper ranking on this list. But what you can see
that was cringeworthy. Oh God, she ain't good.
of her is bad enough that it deserves a mention. And my number one pick for the worst big man in wrestling is Giant Gonzalez.
Yep.
No matter how horrible the great Khali might have been, he was simply poured from the mold of a taller, more awkward, more uncharismatic, and more misplaced performer. Jorge Gonzalez was a star basketball player from Argentina who stood almost 8 feet tall and was drafted by the NBA's Atlanta Hawks, owned by none other than Ted Turner. When it was clear that Jorge's hoop dreams weren't going to be realized, Ted remembered he had a wrestling company as well and dumped him off with the good folks of WCW. Bestowed the clever name of El Gigante, which is Spanish for the Giant. Gonzalez made his debut in 1990 at Capital Combat because apparently RoboCop alone wasn't enough to help.
In that same pay-per-view, they had RoboCop in a wrestling ring.
Against the Four Horsemen. Gigante was a thorn in the side of all the major WCW heels of the era,
Wrestling
from
is
Ric Flair
weird.
to Sid. But his inability to connect with the fan base and his overall lack of coordination in the ring was enough for him to be gone by the fall of '92. But if anyone can turn a bowl of chicken shit into a giant pile of chicken shit, it's Vince McMahon. Giant Gonzalez made his WWF debut at the 1993 Royal Rumble. And you know what? I'll rag on his wrestling abilities all day, but I just feel bad for him having to wear this godforsaken...
Again, Argentinian man comes to America to play basketball. He doesn't do well enough, so he gets traded because of his height to a wrestling thing that he knows nothing about, and that doesn't go well. And then now he has to wear a skin suit with furry pants. Oh, this poor man.
Abomination of ring attire. Nothing gets over with the fans quite like resembling a ripped, nude, hairy Sasquatch. What were they thinking? Gonzalez has the distinction of having the worst match on arguably the worst WrestleMania of all time against The Undertaker. Let's just say there's a good reason it's not talked about much when the company refers to Taker's WrestleMania streak. It's not great when the nearly 8-foot-tall furball has to resort to using a deadly chemical to try and subdue his opponent.
Like, the others went into wrestling for the most part on their own want. This dude literally came to America for basketball, and the guy that owned it put him into wrestling. Like, he didn't ask for this. He just, it's a paycheck. I feel bad for this man, but no, he sucked. He sucked so bad.
And still can't beat him. With Yokozuna at the top of the food chain in the World Wrestling Federation, there wasn't much use for another heel giant who wrestled far worse. A planned babyface turn after losing a Rest in Peace match to Taker at SummerSlam was canceled, and Gonzalez left the promotion soon afterward. And of course, we can't forget his terrible match in Japan against Nails. Ugh. Eventually, health problems brought about by his massive height prevented him from continuing his career as he retired from wrestling in 1995. Now, I get that big wrestlers often work a slower, more plodding big man style, but history shows us that wrestling's greatest big men often had at least two of the following three things: size, agility, and charisma. Andre the Giant was a great example of how to book giants in his time.
True.
By the 1990s, that style had become passé. Perhaps Gonzalez's biggest crime was he was born about 10 years too late. It's rare to find somebody who can look so impressive they get signed by two major companies, yet still fail on a fantastic scale in both places, but that's exactly what happened to El Gigante / Giant Gonzalez. For as much exposure as he had, and as much as he was exposed in more ways than one, that's why Gonzalez is my pick for the worst big man in wrestling history. Did I make any big omissions? Let me know who else you think belongs in this list in the comment section below. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.
It sucks because he didn't ask for it, but he was really bad. He was really bad. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. Check me out on Twitch, SilverDFanng, 2 N's in Fang. Check me out on Twitter and Blue Sky under the same name. Also TikTok. Have a great night.